Now, if you're curious about moving to a 55+ community here in Las Vegas, but you're not sure if it's the right decision for you, then this video is a must watch. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about moving into a 55+ neighborhood. And this is coming from my firsthand experience helping people move both in and out of these neighborhoods so that you can make the best decision for you. Hi, my name is Micah Bleecher, and I've lived in Las Vegas for more than 23 years. I love living in Las Vegas, and I make videos to share how passionate I feel about living in this incredible and dynamic city. And we're going to go ahead and jump into this video right now. Okay, well, let's start out with number one, a pro. Keep it on the positive. Number one, low maintenance living. Low maintenance living is one of the big attractions of 55+ communities in Las Vegas. Now, as we get older, one of the last things we want to worry about is exterior home maintenance, and in these communities, that burden is greatly reduced. Now, there's a common misconception that HOAs take care of all outside maintenance, and that's not true, not exactly true anyway. Now, if you live in a patio home, the HOA may take care of much or even all of the outside maintenance depending on where you live. And that can include the landscaping, the painting, the roof, basically everything on the exterior. In fact, in some cases, it even includes the water to water the landscaping. But in most single family homes, you're still responsible for the maintenance on your property. However, it's oftentimes very minimal because the homes are small, the lots are small, it's a small footprint, there's desert landscaping, and it's pretty easy to get it done. Many retirees either handle it themselves or hire an inexpensive lawn maintenance crew that comes in and does a little blow and go and a little trimming, and they're in and out, and it's typically very inexpensive. Now, one of my clients who lives in a Summerlin patio home told me how happy he was that he didn't have to do any kind of outside maintenance. He hadn't done it for years. He loves it that way. Doesn't mind paying the extra couple $100 a month it takes to the HOA to make that happen. But keep in mind that level of ease depends on the type of home you choose, and it's going to affect your HOA payment every month. Now, let's talk about HOAs a little bit. We're going to talk about them a little bit more in depth later, but they vary quite a bit from community to community. Now, if you live in one of those patio homes that is completely taken care of by the community, that can create an HOA fee of anywhere from $400 to $600 a month, depending on the community that you're talking about. So it's not cheap. So why do I refer to these homes generally as low maintenance living if the HOA is not handling everything? Well, because they're easy to manage. They're small. The yards are smaller and they're simpler to maintain. It's perfect for people who don't want the hassle of a big house. And I hear that over and over. Look, I've got a big house now. I don't want a big house anymore. We want to look under a certain number of square feet. I don't want the big yard. A few of the lots in some of these communities are quite large. When I take people there, and oftentimes they'll tell me, I don't want a lot that big. I want a smaller lot. I don't need that much space. I want it to be small and nice. A lot of my clients ask me how easy are these homes to shut down when they travel, because they do travel a lot. And I tell them it's very easy. Usually you just shut everything down, close the blinds, turn the thermostat down and go. I like to have all of my little apps on my phone. I like to have my Ring doorbell. I like my video security. I've got my Nest controller here. Just about everything I can manage from my phone when I'm away and see what's going on, check the temperature, and it works out great that way. Now, if you want to take low maintenance living even a step further, then maybe you want to consider one of these patio homes or a townhouse where they do everything. Some of my clients like that situation, but most prefer to do a little bit of their own maintenance or have a single family home, and they don't mind taking care of the outside a little bit. The trade-off is always going to be higher HOA fees, and of course you still pay a little bit more if you're going to pay a blow and go guy to do it, or if you do it yourself, you save the money. But then you have to do it yourself, and it's an extra chore, and not everybody wants to do that. Now, at the end of the day, low maintenance living in a 55+ community means less time spent on doing maintenance activities and more time spent doing the things that you love, like hanging out at the clubhouse or getting involved in the social clubs or playing a couple games of pickleball or bocce ball, or just getting involved with friends, or just sitting down and reading a book in the library. If that sounds good to you, maybe it's time to explore your options. For number two, let's talk about one of the most significant drawbacks for an age-restricted community, and that is the age restrictions. Now, all of these communities operate under the Federal Housing for Older Persons Act, which allows them to restrict residency based on age, and it's designed to protect vulnerable people as we age so that we can age in place and not necessarily have to step up to assisted living so quickly and that kind of thing. It's done to protect older people in a vulnerable state. Now, typically, at least one person needs to be above 55 years old. A person's spouse can be younger, but here's where it gets a little bit tricky. There can't be a permanent resident in the house under 19 years old. And for a lot of people, that works great. However, I've had some clients where this restriction has caused a problem where they've had a daughter that got a divorce and had to move back in, who had a younger child that was 10 years old, and they really had to make a tough decision between helping their daughter and leaving the community, and that's one of the drawbacks to living in an age-restricted community. Visiting restrictions can also be challenging. Many communities limit how long underage visitors can stay, and typically that's 30 to 90 days per year, but sometimes it's only 2 weeks at a time. This means if you have grandchildren who may want to spend the entire summer with you, you may need to track how long they stay and plan for that so that you don't violate community rules. Some communities are pretty strict about that. I mean, that's why people move into 55 plus communities in the first place. Now, enforcement varies widely. Some communities tend to be a little bit more relaxed about visitors, and some communities are much more strict about it. Some communities want visitors to check in and get passes so that they can participate in activities. There are age exceptions for caregivers, but the medical need needs to be documented thoroughly. Now, before committing to live in a 55 plus community, I always advise my clients to read the HOA rules very carefully. We call them the CC&Rs. Covenants, conditions, and restrictions, and honestly assess your family situation and make sure the rules for that community are going to fit your needs. That's very important. If you're not in alignment with the community rules, it's going to be a problem. If what those rules say are perfectly okay with you, then everything is going to be great. Because once you're in, these rules are not necessarily flexible. Some communities are more relaxed than others, but some are very strict, and you need to check that out before making that final commitment. Now, we always get a package when we're in escrow deciding whether we want to buy that house or not. We always get the package of rules, and we can check them out, read them, and make sure they're in alignment with our needs, our family needs, and whatever our personal needs are. We can check that out and read those rules thoroughly when we're in escrow, and that's very important. Number 3, social opportunities. Now, let's explore one of the biggest advantages there is when it comes to 55 plus communities, and that is the social engagement opportunities. Studies show that loneliness and isolation is not only bad for our mental health, but it's bad for our physical health as well. People deteriorate more quickly when they're in a state of isolation and they don't have proper social interaction with peers. And one of the biggest challenges that I see with my clients when they downsize is isolation. They move into a smaller home when they downsize. They find themselves in areas where everybody's gone during the day or too busy with young families to socialize, right? It doesn't match up, it doesn't align well. Now, most communities have dedicated social directors that put together all kinds of events like wine tastings, dance nights, card nights, cooking classes, all kinds of events and types of things like that that people are interested in and go to. At Sienna and Summerlin, and as do most of the 55 plus communities, there are holiday events planned throughout the whole year. And people in these clubs are really friendly. Now, I had a client who had moved into Sun City, Summerlin. She had lost her husband. Her husband passed away. I get a lot of clients like that that are either widows or widowers, and they're making a change, downsizing in their life. Anyway, she was hesitant that she was not going to be able to fit in. I didn't think she was going to have that problem, but that's what she was concerned about. And I checked in with her, as I do with most of my clients. And, within 3 months, she was in 2 book clubs, a walking group. She had a standing weekly dinner with neighbors. She told me, Micah, I have not felt this connected in decades. It's exciting. When I walk through with clients and through the clubhouses, sometimes during the happy hour events, people are so inviting. They say, hey, come on in, come on in. Now, what's unique about these communities is how the social fabric is woven into everyday life. You don't have to make special plans to see people. You naturally connect at the pool, at the clubhouse. Maybe you go down to, a nearby golf course and run into people. Maybe you hook up at the fitness center or at another community event. It's just natural to run into people. I'm running into people when I'm there with clients. It's fun. Now, for singles, this can be especially life-changing. One gentleman told me that he had spent 5 years in his previous neighborhood barely speaking to anyone coming and going. And now he jokes that he actually has to schedule alone time because he's got so many social events going on and has so many friends. Of course, participation is always optional. Nobody is forced to join anything, but having these opportunities at your doorstep and at your fingertips makes maintaining an active social life nearly effortless. And that is important as we get older. It just is. It's more difficult to make friends, and it's easier in the clubhouse at a 55+ community. It just is. I've seen it with my own eyes. Now, moving on to number 4, let's discuss the rules and restrictions that govern daily life in these communities that go far beyond just the age restrictions. Now, every community has a thick book of CC&Rs. That means covenants, conditions, and restrictions. We just call them the HOA rules. Now, they dictate what you can and cannot do with your property. Now, I've found that many buyers don't fully grasp what that means and how these rules are going to affect their daily life until after they've already moved in. Want to paint your door red? Sorry, it may not be in the color palette. Planning to park your RV in the driveway? Well, most communities have rules against parking RVs in your driveway. Thinking about growing vegetables? Well, some communities have strict rules about what kind of landscaping you can have in your front yard. Even simple things like putting up holiday decorations can be regulated. From how long they can be displayed to what kind of decorations they can be. One of my clients was fined in a community that had their Christmas lights out past the January 5th deadline for taking them down. Pet lovers need to also be cautious because most communities have pet rules. Some have a 2-dog rule. Some have rules that govern the size and types and breeds. Now, enforcement mechanisms can feel intrusive. Some communities have what we jokingly call the violation patrol, but there's always somebody in the community that drives around looking for violations. Fines are all over the place depending on the community. They can be as low as $25 or $50. Now, to be fair, these rules and regulations are what maintain a community's peaceful environment and all of the aesthetics, and they're very important. Now, we always get a copy of the rules and regulations once we're in escrow, and we get a 5-day period of time in which to read all of those rules and regulations and make sure that we're in alignment with those. Sometimes it's possible to get a copy before making an offer, but those are not the official rules. The only official rules that we'll get are the ones that the seller pays for when we're in escrow. They also pay for what we call a demand statement. That's the financial statement for any of these communities. So it's important for us to receive that financial statement and study it and make sure that their reserves are in accordance with what the rules are. We want to make sure that the community that we're moving into is properly funded. I'm sure you've read about the stories in Florida where communities were not funded. There's even a condo here in town that had a big assessment because they didn't have high enough HOA fees compared to what the expenses are. And so that's something that the demand statement is going to let us know. Remember, you're not just buying a home, we're buying what amounts to a membership in a governed community. And these communities oftentimes are big, like Sun City Summerlin, Sun City Anthem, with over 7,000 homes. They're like small towns, and so they have to have rules. I know at Sun City Anthem, they even have rules for all the clubs and committees, a big, thick rule book for that. Essentially, they have their own little mini legal system for all these rules and regulations, and it's important to know that. For some, the trade-off is worth it. For others, it can feel a bit suffocating. Now, the alternative is to move into an area where there is no homeowners association, and I don't necessarily recommend that either. They can be expensive because the land is usually larger and you just don't know if the next door neighbor is going to have their car up on blocks and how other people take care of their homes because there's no enforcement. Anyway, most of my clients end up having no problems with the rules of the homeowners association, and they appreciate them and appreciate that it keeps the quality and the value up of their properties, and they're willing to put up with a little bit of annoyance here and there once in a while. So I find that for my clients, it works out just fine. I get along fine with my homeowners association, and I find that most people that I know do also. Well, for number 5, let's talk about the incredible array of amenities specifically designed for active adults. Now, we're not talking about your typical community pool or meeting room that you have in most smaller communities. We're talking about resort-style facilities where you have indoor heated pools, lap pools, outdoor pools, resort pools. I mean, these facilities would make a lot of luxury hotels jealous. It's a lot like being a member of a country club. It's a lot less expensive than being a member of a country club. I can tell you that because I've been a member of a country club. Now take Sun City Summerlin, for example. They've got 4 recreation centers, 3 golf courses, swimming pools, tennis courts, pickleballs, multiple clubhouses. They've got a small restaurant on property. They have something for everyone at Sun City Summerlin. It's the biggest community that we have in town. I have clients that have moved there and found that they're suddenly busier than when they were working. Now, the best part of it is just steps away from your front door. No driving across town or paying separate membership fees. That's not how it is at the country clubs. You have your HOA dues on one hand, and then you've got your club membership on the other hand. These 55 plus communities remind me of having a sport membership at a golf course, because you need a sport membership to take advantage of all of the fitness facilities at a country club and all of the social activities. Here, the HOA fee covers all of the fitness and all of the social activities combined. Now, if you live in a community with a golf course, that's usually extra, but you get discounts on annual passes if you're a golfer. Everything is designed to keep you active and engaged. It's all about enjoying life without the hassle. Now, for many of my clients, it's these amenities that make living in these 55 plus communities worth the investment. And I can tell you, as I walk through these clubhouses on tours with clients, and just last week I was in probably 6 or 7 different clubhouses around town in different communities with 2 different clients, and I'm telling you, it was really exciting to see their faces light up when they were in a busy, active clubhouse, and all of the members there were hanging out, doing activities, getting involved. You can see them interacting with each other and having fun. You could see my clients' eyes light up when they saw that. And now we're moving on to number 6, and that addresses the financial reality of living in these communities. Beyond your mortgage, you're going to have an HOA fee that can, at times, be quite substantial. Now, I've seen them as low as $95 a month or so in communities like Solera over in the Anthem area, but other communities such as Trilogy in Summerlin can have fees as high as $615 a month, and that is a lot for many retirees. And you can bet that over time these fees go up, sometimes at a rate of 2 to 5% annually. And what many buyers don't anticipate is a potential for a special assessment. Now, if major repairs are needed and there's not enough in reserves, then the community has no choice but to make a special assessment. Now, we see it all over the news with properties in Florida that haven't been maintaining their reserves over time. And even here in Las Vegas, I recently heard about an older condo association that hadn't maintained enough reserves, hit their residents with an $8,000 assessment. Now, people were up in arms about that. It wasn't fair. The bottom line is that condo association did not maintain enough reserves. The state of Nevada audits these associations so that their financial stability is maintained. Now, many of these communities require a capital contribution when you move in. For example, in Sun City Anthem, they usually require about 1/3 of 1% when a new buyer moves in, and that goes into the reserves for future repairs and future expenses. It helps keep the monthly costs down, and if you'll notice, Sun City Anthem only has an HOA fee of about $149. That's pretty low. Now, the brand new communities have SIDS and LIDs. Now, that's something a little bit different. SIDS and LIDs stand for either Special Improvement District or a Limited Improvement District, and it's a temporary tax that goes on a brand new neighborhood to pay for all the infrastructure. And once that's paid off, it goes away, but it stays on the deed until it does, and it's usually a small amount per year, but it's something to think about. Now, remember, you're going to be paying these fees whether you're using them or not. Snowbirds who are only here about half the year still have to pay these fees all year long. But it's important to factor in these ongoing costs before committing to a 55 plus community. But don't worry, there's lots of options from affordable all the way on up. Let me know where your budget is and I will help you keep within that. Well, for number 7, let's highlight the enhanced security and safety features. Most 55 plus communities in Las Vegas feature gated entrances, and many of those are even guard gated. Now, they all have security patrols and often 24-hour staffing. Now, there are communities that are not gated at all, but they have regular security rounds go by, and I see them all the time when I'm out there working in those communities. In fact, Sun City Summerlin has retired police officers that go around in security vehicles, and they have a security center at one of their clubhouses, and I see them there all the time when I'm out there working. Now, Del Webb has electronic gates. You have to punch in a code. But in addition to that, there are security patrols that go around all the time. I always say it's important to get those security patrols' contact information And if there's ever any funny business, those are the people I call the police and the security patrols, because they're on site and the security patrols can get there quickly and get there first. Now, my clients who I talk to consistently tell me that they feel safe when they're walking alone in the evenings in their communities. Now, the community design also means that neighbors tend to look out for each other. It creates an additional layer of informational security that's hard to find in other neighborhoods. Now, point number 8 highlights restrictions on rental options. So if you're thinking of purchasing a property as an investment, or you want to rent it out during the times you're not in town, like if you're buying a second home, that is something that you need to think about, because every single community has different rules about that. In fact, most 55 plus communities in Las Vegas have very strict rules, and they wouldn't allow an Airbnb situation at all. Now, longer term rentals often require minimum lease periods, and again, that's going to depend on the community. Sometimes it's 6 months. It might even be a year in some communities. I know that in Sun City, Summerlin, it can be as low as 1 month. You can actually buy a property and have monthly rentals. That's very helpful when you're trying to plan a year and you're only going to be in town, 9 months out of the year. You have the option to rent your house out for 3 months. However, it's important to remember that every single community is different. Now, rental policies are easy to find out. We can find that out before you have to get into escrow on a property. We just need to call the HOA and ask. So if you're with me looking for homes and you're concerned about that, let me know. I'll give the HOA a call and we'll find out. In fact, any question that you have before even considering the neighborhood, it's just not a problem for me to reach out and give a call to most of these homeowners associations, especially in the 55 plus communities. They're often very nice and very quick to answer questions and happy to answer the questions that I have. Now, for number 9, let's recognize the wellness-centered approach that each of these communities have. Now, unlike standard neighborhoods, these 55 plus communities are specifically designed with healthy aging in mind. Nearly all of the 55 plus communities in town feature dedicated wellness facilities that have fitness programs that are tailored to active adults. Now, I think all of the communities have this. Heritage at Stonebridge came to mind while I was writing this, and they have programs and classes tailored to people of various needs and abilities. And I really think that all of the communities do just that. I mean, there's programs that will work with just about anybody. Now, the homes themselves are designed for people that are aging. They're easy to get in and out of, few steps, generous doorways. Now, even the communities are designed with walking trails and activity centers, all to not only encourage movement, but social interactivity. Now, some communities have even partnered with healthcare providers to provide on-site clinics, regular health screenings, or even wellness workshops. Now, this integrated approach to wellness makes it easier to maintain a healthy lifestyle as we age. Now, many of my clients have told me how invaluable it is to them compared to the neighborhoods that they've come from, which were not designed with these special considerations in mind. It makes a huge difference. As we get older, the world changes, and sometimes it feels like we don't belong anymore. But I can tell you that in these communities, as we age, they're specifically designed for people like us. It's much easier to maintain that sense of belonging when you're living in a place that was designed specifically for someone like you. Now, for number 10, let's talk about how the age restrictions in the community are going to affect your investment when it comes time to sell. Now, the simple reality is that you're going to be looking at a much smaller pool of buyers, right? I mean, there's an age restriction on the pool. There is an 80-20 rule. Younger people can buy in a 55 plus community. Up to 20% of the people can be younger than 55, but really most younger people don't shop in 55 plus communities. So it limits the buyer pool when you put your house up for sale. Now, this limited buyer pool can mean that it takes longer to sell your house and perhaps even lower comparative values, possibly. Now, I don't always see that. The market's been so hot that even homes in the 55 plus communities go pretty quickly. I've been looking all over Sun City Anthem the past 2 weeks with a couple of different clients, and out of over 7,000 homes, there's only about 70 homes for sale. That's like around 1%. That's not very many. So homes are still selling pretty quickly, even though there are age restrictions. The demand for 55 plus homes here in Las Vegas is very high. Now, with that said, homes in 55 plus community can stay on the market a bit longer than in regular neighborhoods that can go more quickly. We have a larger pool of buyers going after them, but that can just simply depend on the market as well. Now, I was talking with a client just the other day, and I was talking to him about resale values, and I was telling him that, that is something to think about. And he just looked at me and smiled. He goes, "That's not something I'm concerned about. My kids are going to sell my house when I'm done with it." And we both had a little bit of a laugh over that. And I don't think if the house sits on the market an extra month or so, the kids are going to even worry about that in the future. So now, location matters tremendously. Now, in some parts of town, properties can hold their values more than others. Summerlin has been very strong with that regard. So neighborhoods like Sun City and Sienna or Trilogy and those properties that are around Billionaires Road, even properties over in Regency in Summerlin, can really hold their value really well, simply because of their prime location. Now, the flip side of that, when you're buying in one of these communities, there can be a few more properties available because of the age restrictions, and it keeps younger people from buying them all up. Anyway, if a quick sale is important to you, buying in a 55+ community is something to think about. It can take a little bit longer to sell your home if that's what you end up needing to do. Now, for number 11, let's appreciate the predictable, peaceful environment that these 55+ communities provide. Now, there's a noticeable absence of noise and activity that's typically associated with standard neighborhoods with young families. There's no loud parties at 2 a.m., no skateboarding on sidewalks, and a general respect for the quiet hours. Streets are less congested and the amenities aren't overcrowded, and there's a reliable rhythm to community life. Now, for many of my clients, especially those coming from really busy neighborhoods, this predictability and calm is exactly what they're looking for in retirement. As one of my clients put it, "I've earned my peace and quiet in my retirement, and I have finally got it." Now, for number 12, let's discuss visitor limitations, which can directly impact your family relationships, especially with younger relatives. Now, most 55+ communities have very specific rules about how long younger visitors can stay. And by younger, we're talking about under 19 in most communities. Now, typically, grandchildren or other young visitors can stay 30 or 60, 90 days a year, sometimes consecutively, but sometimes there are even shorter limits. It can really vary by community. Now, this can really create practical challenges for family gatherings. Now, I had a client that traditionally hosted their grandchildren for the entire summer and was surprised to learn that the community limited that ability after they moved in. Now, some communities require visitors to register on arrival, especially if they're using the amenities. Now, oftentimes that can require a pass, right? An amenity pass, and sometimes that can be like $5 a day on a limited basis. So you can have visitors that have access to the amenities with you. Now, those rules can sometimes be more strictly enforced during times of peak amenity usage, such as summer or other seasonal times when things are really busy. So if regular or extended visits from a grandchild or other young family members are very important to you, it's critical that you check the rules out because, as I mentioned, they vary from community to community. For point 13, let's consider the benefit of living in a community where everyone shares a similar stage in life. There's something uniquely comfortable about being surrounded by neighbors who share your generational experiences and your reference points. The activities and clubs are especially geared towards your interests and needs, from wine tasting clubs to technology workshops that help you stay connected with grandchildren. Now, when a community organizes a Medicare workshop or a retirement planning session, well, that information is relevant to just about everyone there. Now, I've had clients that have lived in regular neighborhoods where they felt increasingly disconnected from younger neighbors with different priorities. Now, in 55+ neighborhoods, conversations often flow much more easily because we've had so many shared life experiences, whether it's adjusting to retirement or losing a loved one or dealing with grandchildren or just, dealing with the invisibility of getting older. The people that live around you, the people that you socialize with and connect with every day are going to have those same experiences that you've had. Now, this shared life stage connection that goes on can really create a sense of belonging that many people find deeply satisfying. As one resident told me, "I don't have to explain myself or my choices. Everyone already seems to just get it." And that was deeply satisfying to him. People after 55 start to have that time compression going on, where it makes each moment that we have a little bit more valuable. And everyone in the 55 plus community has that same time compression happening. It's easier to understand each other and experience that sense of camaraderie over that. I hear that from people all the time. Now look, one final consideration that I think it's important to talk about is the potential for social isolation that comes with living in an age-restricted or an age-segregated community, especially one that may be on the outskirts of Las Vegas a little bit. Now, while the social scenes in these communities can be vibrant, they can create a bit of a bubble that separates you from the greater Las Vegas community. Now, some of my clients have mentioned that they have felt disconnected from the intergenerational connections that they used to make when they lived in a regular community. In fact, just last week, I was showing homes with a potential client from out of state, and the librarian at Sun City Anthem was not only saying how great it was for all of the social interactions that are going on there, but she gave us some advice, and she says, make sure you get involved with some activities outside the community. She specifically mentioned maybe volunteering or getting a part-time job at a place like even the Smith Center. That's where she was an usher for many years. And I thought that was great advice. Now, this is especially important for people that have to give up driving or have mobility issues because, you know, public transportation is available, but it's not that great. Uber can be cost prohibitive for some people. Close-in communities might be better in this regard, something like Sun City Summerlin, where it's very close to shopping and everything is so close, it just wouldn't take much of an Uber ride at all to get to where you need to go. Now, before choosing the community, I highly recommend spending time there at different times of the day and see how that community feels morning, noon, and evening. It's important to see if you like it at all times of the day. Check out the distance to your doctor. Jump on a Google map. Say, how long does it take to get here? Check out the distance to the favorite places you go. How long does it take to get to my favorite shopping? How long does it take to get to the Strip? It's also important to consider that if mobility issues occur in the future, is this community still going to be okay for you? It's important to think ahead and just kind of think a few moves ahead, like playing chess, you know, how this is all going to work out. And I'm happy to talk to you about all of that. At the end of the day, moving into a 55 plus community depends on exactly what your needs are. Now, some of my clients love these 55 plus communities, and you might too if you find exactly the right one like they did. On the other hand, you might want something completely different. I have a client that just bought a 3-story home on the lake at Lake Las Vegas. I've got another client who has a single-story home right on the golf course in a country club. They love that type of lifestyle with the golf course. So there is just something for everyone. It's not all about 55 plus community, but it is about maximizing whatever time we have left and making every moment valuable. But if you're seriously considering a move to Las Vegas, to a 55 plus community or anywhere else, feel free to reach out and give me a call. My number is on the screen below. Now, if you're still unsure about the 55 plus communities, be sure to watch the Ultimate Guide to 55 plus communities, where I talk about every community in town. It's very informative. My name's Micah Bleecher. I am always here to help you find the perfect place to call home. I'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Peace out. Love you guys.